Good morning and happy Friday. How you doing, Matt?
Happy, I'm doing well. We made it to Friday, survived some travel time on the road, and happy to be home.
Yeah, no, that's I know got to spend a little time with you this week in Orlando at MSP Geek. Uh, Great event, really geared for technicians out there, and it's nice to catch your presentation that you were doing on hacker health. Congratulations on that. I know that you remain pretty engaged in that community in general.
It's such a that show just has such a good vibe. Like everyone's there for the pure knowledge sharing and the pure getting better aspect of it. It's a I don't want to say it's a totally different kind of event because there are others like it, but it's such a good feeling there. I love going to that show every year.
Awesome. Now, are you home for a little bit, or where are you off to?
I think so. I might, knock on wood, not have to travel again until IT Nation secure. So I might have basically all of May. What day is it anyway? The 9th. So that's what, like a solid 3 weeks. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's how you know you're talking to someone in the industry and they don't know what day it is anymore. Well,
How about
good
you?
news.
How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Recharging a bit after, I always kind of overextend my social batteries at events like that, trying to make the most out of it, but recharge a little bit now and off to London next week. So
Nice.
make sure that I can do as much as I can to get the recoup before that. But I was gonna say we should both be in good moods. Mets are leading the league on your end, and Cubs are doing good on my end. So
Yeah. And right, the showdown starts tonight. Mets Cubs.
Yep, should be a good one. So I know we're without Josh today, but we are very lucky to have Dawn Sizer joining us. Dawn, have you jump in here?
Hello.
Hello and welcome. How are you
Hey,
today?
Don.
I'm doing well. I'm happy to see you guys. It feels like it's been a hot minute since I've seen either one of you, so it's fantastic to see you almost in person.
I know it's a little bummed. It sounds like I'm gonna miss you next week. Be two ships passing in the night. You're coming into Chicago as I'm leaving.
Yeah, I was sad. Well, I was happy that you were hanging out with friends that I'm going to get to see next week, but sad that I was going to miss you. But you're going to London, so
Yeah,
can't be too mad about that.
yeah, worse things for sure. So, well, let's go ahead and kick off into our first story today. We've got a few to get to. First thing here that we have is about the number of agents for all the different software that get installed on your end user computers. So this person's asking how many is too many. So whether that's for your RMM, your ticketing, web content filtering, EDR, so on and so forth. How do you choose what actually gets put out there onto the end user devices, and when does it become bloatware? Is this something you guys think about as you're designing your packages, or is it, it is what it is and just increase the minimum?
We just
I
throw
try to
the
think
math
how to
box
answer
in for the
this.
best.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a hard number exactly, but there definitely is a point where you've had enough of this. And the way that I handled it was probably not helpful to anyone because it was really somewhat intuitive. We got to a point where, some add-on thing that somebody wanted, we did the eval and it's like, it's another agent. I'm like, okay, no more. Like, I don't know what the number was exactly, but I think for me, it's really, is this providing something truly useful? And part of the package, and of course, there's the evaluation of risk management that goes with it. Do you trust this provider? Are you confident that their dev practices does follow a real critical business function? And if it's so, and assuming that it's not a heavy-handed agent that consumed significant resources, then it got put on. And there were a few that couldn't justify their own existence that got rejected. But I think for me, it's if you need it, you need it. Of course, if you can have fewer, the better.
John, how about you?
So we look at it again, what Matt was saying is very good. Like, does it need to be an agent? Maybe it doesn't. There are plenty of things out there that don't need to be an agent, and maybe there are other options. How much of the processor is it really eating, right? Because if it's not eating anything and it's just existing, then it's not a huge deal. But if the agent's really good, chances are it's going to eat some of that processing power. And you have to be really careful about that because the client experience is a little bit different too. Like, how much stuff is every vendor packing into their agents these days, right? And is the agent worth what they're packing into it if it's eating the processor? And now we have to scale up the end user device, right, to account for that. So I think there's a trade-off between value, money, client experience, and even if it actually needs to be there.
So how do you guys go, or I guess, do you take that into consideration when you are planning out your minimum requirements for client devices? Or does everyone just get 128 gigs of RAM across the...
No, they only get 4. We just make do with what we can get now. No, I mean, I think it's part of the vetting process, right? So as we're putting it into a sandbox or a test bed or the lab, if you will, what does it look like? What is it doing? Can we run other things with it? Do we notice it? Do we not notice it? I think there's all kinds of things that you're actually looking at it. But if you're making it part of your vendor vetting process and you have a machine that has, you should be eating your own tacos or your own caviar or whatever you want to call it, drinking your own champagne. At this point, I think it's like eating my own pizza and having my own gin. That would be fantastic, especially at 11 o'clock in the morning. But whatever your process is, I'm hoping you're running the same things internally as you're putting out to your clients, because that's the experience that they're getting, right? If you're not treating yourself like a client, you don't know what their experience is truly like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think to your point, Henry, though, you do have to consider there's going to be a base level of overhead, and the number of agents we install increases the specs that you need for a typical client PC, right? The days of having like an 8 gig of RAM machine are just long gone, whether managed or not, just because of the amount of stuff happening. But if you know that you have some heavy security agents or some heavy log monitoring or stuff that just generates a lot of things, then your baseline might need to be higher. And I do think it's something you take into account, and it can make for a little bit of a difficult conversation with clients if they're tech savvy, right? You might have somebody to say, well, I know that this machine can handle what I want to do. Why should we pay more for this bigger machine to run all of your stuff? And it just something you have to work through and take into account. But to your broader point, yes, for sure, that all these agents can certainly increase the baseline for your machines.
Yeah, that's I know we end up benchmarking anytime that we change any drastic agents that get put out there, but we also tend to have more of a layered security approach. So it does impact client endpoint machines. So we do end up having a higher baseline that we require for them, but are obviously attempting to not overload with, let's install another thing and another thing. So I think as long as you can justify, whether that's from a security framework approach or the services that you are providing, and you can be transparent about that with the client, I don't think that there's too much issue as far as running multiple agents out there. It's when they get ridiculous and you see those old like images of the task managers or the I'm sorry, system trays and browser extensions and things like that. That yeah, the Caesar's probably talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's hop into our next story here. If you knew then what you know now, getting your MSP thriving. So, if you were to start over today, what would you do differently now, given the experience in the industry and all the lessons you've learned? And how would you get started differently today? Dawn, you want to start with that one?
That's a hard question to answer. Always starting. So here's the thing, right? As you learn things in the industry, not only does starting today differ, but you don't get to start at a maturity level that everybody wants to reach from the beginning. That it just doesn't work that way. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So I think you have to temper that question appropriately to say that yes, you can start it with a little bit more information. And Frank DeLuca just chimed in with he'd run a hot dog and margarita stand. 100%.
He's got the right idea.
It's been the running joke for the longest time. But I mean, things that you would do differently, right? I'd have a better HR process, right? Knowing how to hire people is a huge one. And that's something that I'd want to know up front, how to do that better, what that looks like, what the onboarding, not only for a client, right? But what the onboarding for somebody that you want to retain looks like. That would be a big one. And then some of the other things, right? Being able to have the money to have legal, to be able to craft your MSAs and your SOWs and things along those lines a little bit better than what we had at the very beginning. And the understanding that comes along with that and the business acumen that you have to understand with the way that contracts work and how you can manipulate in a good way the contracts to everyone's benefit. I think those are the biggies that I would want to know up front. It's not the blinky lights. It's not the tech stuff. That's the easy stuff for us. It's the business aspect and the people aspect that I wish I would have had more knowledge, understanding, and just a better way of doing business from the get-go.
Yeah.
And a market meeting.
People are hard.
Yeah.
People are hard. How about you, Matt? What would you do? You were starting out. I know we all
going to echo
5 years ago, but yeah.
a lot of what I would say matches what Don just said. And I think it's when you're starting out, learning the lesson that the technical aspect is really the least important part of this whole thing. You obviously need a baseline technical understanding of how everything works and be able to implement and resolve issues. But the business acumen, the people skills, knowing that you have to do an SOW, let alone doing a good one, right? All of that stuff comes with experience for a lot of organizations. When you're first starting out, you do write the number on the back of a napkin and here's your quote stuff, and your processes aren't in place. You're kind of just using your inbox as your ticket queue and all of that stuff. Unless you've right, you learn that along the way. Like if you decide tomorrow you're going to start a new MSP and you haven't worked in one yet, you might not know that you have to do any of that stuff. And so I'm going to say almost the exact same answer Don did, and just all of the operational things around the business, more than the tech, right? The tech is easy, or at least easier, I think. Figuring that stuff out and not even necessarily having it dialed in, just knowing when you start out that that's the part to really focus on. That's the big lesson.
So one other thing I do want to mention, like we started our MSP back in 2005. So we're in year 20 at this point, right? So we didn't even know the channel existed until 2017. Knowing that there are other people out there doing what you're doing and that there's groups of them, like that would have been a game changer too. So
yeah.
No, I'm thinking back to when all the things I did when I first started, and almost none of it I would do now. Is like I took business from everyone, regardless of whether it was profitable or made sense, regardless of what industry they were in. I did pretty much all break fix when I started, and wasn't fully managed, or co-managed wasn't a thing then. So I guess like I would have picked a vertical or a couple verticals early on. I would have gone into offering some type of fully managed and less break fix early on. Saying no earlier, I still struggle with that.
It's a full sentence, Henry.
But yeah, I like that is an issue both from taking on projects and taking on clients, but the impact, some of those troublesome projects and clients can have on your staff is huge. So being able to say no early on would have been would have benefited me greatly. And I absolutely got into the shiny object syndrome of early on of oh, we need a tool for this and a tool for that, and yeah, so there's a lot of things I would have changed going back 15 years ago, but also, I mean, a lot of these things were just kind of common practice at their times. So I'm sure in another 5, 10, 15 years from now, I'll probably be saying the same things about now. So we will see. How about you guys as far as would you change how you approach pricing or your company cultures?
It's a really interesting question because at first, like, I'm tempted to knee-jerk say, yeah, we would do managed services from the beginning, but I don't know that the industry as a whole would have accepted that back then. It may have been a harder sell than it is now. I guess we could have been trailblazers on it. I think company culture was pretty good then, but back then it was just like a bunch of nerds and like one business person working together. We were happy to have the one business person at the time for sure. I think I would have pushed us to get involved in community stuff sooner. Right. I don't just mean peer groups specifically, although that's a part of it. But even back then, there were some communities around, and even if they weren't all MSP based, just other technical business people, just trying to spend as much time learning and talking with them as we could. And then as soon as peer groups came around, we certainly would have gotten involved in that as soon as possible. I think that's the biggest thing. Just the other people, like Dawn mentioned.
Yeah,
So
community is huge.
We never had break fix. We always were managed services before we even knew what an MSP was. It's just how we did business. So I wouldn't change that because I think that worked out in our favor. I think things are starting to come full circle and that there's more project work out there these days. So I think it's a weird cycle of things that always happens. The community aspect, 100%, I agree with Matt. I think if we would have gotten involved with that sooner, that would have made an enormous difference, both in company culture, but in some other things as well. And I think the understanding of what a business operating system is, if we would have had that sooner, that would have made such an impact that I don't even know how to quantify being able to hook into something like that, what that would have done, but it would have been a paradigm shift.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with on all of that. We're going to jump into our next topic just so we can stay on time here. But an issue that always comes up in every discussion I ever have with fellow MSPs is around lead gen. Gentleman has great customer satisfaction, client retention, and he's looking at how they work with a lead gen organization and is looking for recommendations. How do you guys approach this? I know that everyone that I typically talk to talks about the benefits of the referrals that they're getting from their existing clients, but is that your only source, or do you guys have other methods that you're approaching for lead generation?
It's the only good source that we had. I don't know about your experience is. For us, we got some from just traffic to the website and from doing community events and things like that. I gotta be honest, though, referrals were the vast majority of new clients that came in, and certainly if you talk about good leads that really went anywhere, um, vast majority, the ones that kind of came in out of nowhere, or the various lead gen things we tried, usually didn't pan out. There were some exceptions, some came from that, but um, not many. Now, to be fair, I'm not the right person to talk about sales and marketing for sure, but the ones that I was involved in, usually I didn't get involved unless it was a pretty significant or meaningful lead that was projected to at least get close to closing. They were almost all referrals.
Don?
Referrals are fantastic. That is like the best way on the planet to grow, because not only do you have a really good client that's advocating for you, but they've introduced you to someone that someone already knows who you are, the work that you do through that person that they're referring you to. Like that's fantastic. It's a slow way to grow, but it is a stable way to grow, and it's a great way to grow. So when you talk about lead gen, let's take a step back from that, because you can throw lead gen at people all the day. You can have cold callers, you can do all kinds of things. But if you don't have a very specific message about what you do, how you do it, what your company culture is, and what you're actually offering to the client, doesn't matter. Which is why a lot of lead gen doesn't pan out, because you've thrown spaghetti at the wall and hoped something stuck, right? Let's be real. That's the reality. So what we ended up doing, we worked with two ladies who I absolutely adore, Kristen and Annie from Decoded Strategies, who have just changed their names over to Decoded. And they're a full marketing agency at this point. But what they did was they helped us craft our message and got our messaging really, really solid on what we do and how we do it. Because let's face it, we're geeks. We are not marketing people, like Matt said. I couldn't create good messaging to save my life or anything else, quite frankly. But they were able to do that. So I think if you can find a marketing agency that is able to take all the geek that we do and all the blinky lights and all of that explanation, and then what your very specific types of things that make you stick out, and be able to put it in real language and get all of that stuff over your website, you're good. I mean, that's lead gen 1, right? Let's get a really good message going. Once you have your message going, then it's all about how do you want to attract people, right? Are you attracting them via project? Are you attracting them via something else? Is a lead generation piece of content? What are you trying to get out of this, right? And what type of client are you trying to get out of it? So for instance, if we're trying to attract co-managed people, we're talking about specific projects that go along with a specific industry that they see on repeat that they're not able to do on their own and or don't have enough people to do. So we'll put out content directly around that and how they can solve that problem using us, right? So again, if we don't have the marketing, if we don't have the messaging, if we don't have the exact thing that somebody's looking for, because they're going to do all of their homework ahead of time before they're contacting you. If you're looking at lead gen, again, if it's just spaghetti at the wall, you're going to get lucky every now and then. Even a broken clock's right at least once a day, sometimes twice, depending on how broken it is. Realistically, that's what lead gen takes. Like I said, you can get lucky or you can get very strategic with it. If you get very strategic with it, you're going to get better leads. You're going to get better qualified leads. You may not get as many of them, but the ones that you're getting will probably hit.
Yeah, that's my experience when I was starting out. It's hard to be able to afford to outsource some of those things, but there are lots of networking types of things that you can do in your local community, and getting involved in different charities that'll help build out that referral network as you build your client base. But as you get to a point where you can start to hire out some of these aspects of it, because as you said, Dawn, like I don't know sales marketing very well. That's not my forte. But I would say that there are also things to be careful of as far as some charlatans with snake oil and that are promising silver bullets that just don't exist. Um, I think that's something to be mindful of when you're evaluating potential partners out there to help you with your marketing. I think, though, also being aware that it's going to, it is a process, as you were alluding there, Dawn, like figuring out the positioning and messaging and what your niche is and all that stuff takes time. And if you're going to do any type of outbound marketing for those leads, that's a lengthy process. It's not a flip the switch and instantly you have leads type of thing, at least not in my experience. I'm curious, have you guys had any luck with things like LinkedIn prospecting or cold emails, cold calling, or is it really the networking and referrals that really helps?
So
We had some luck with that. I won't say zero, because I remember outside of my office we had someone cold calling, not totally unknown leads, but people that they researched on LinkedIn and things like that. A few of those turned into clients, but for us, it was still mostly referrals that were successful.
So for us, we've done cold emails, which start to warm them up. And then we'll go from, we'll watch who is actually looking at them, reading them, clicking on them, downloading the content that we're putting out inside of those emails. We'll connect with them on LinkedIn from there. And then we let them be. We're not like, hey, let's schedule a meeting, right? Because that's everything that you get on LinkedIn as soon as you connect with somebody. And that scares people away, right? So we don't want to do that. And then we'll keep educating them and educating them. And eventually something will be like, oh, hey, that's something we're actually looking for. And they will schedule directly with you. And again, we're willing to wait for that, do it right, do it when the time is right for them, and we're not picking at them like a bunch of rabid ducks. Because that's how LinkedIn feels to me, getting pecked to death by ducks. But that's what works for us, and it does hit. And when it hits, it usually hits pretty good.
Yeah, I think education is paramount here. I am going to throw a link in chat to a tool that we're using internally to help identify potential prospects that basically it goes through and scrapes Google Maps based on your criteria and then enhances the data with business owner information, financial information about the businesses, and provides links off to their social media and so forth. So you can start to try to figure out how to network best into them. But yeah, I think you've got to build that trust and first before you can really be successful in building a relationship with these potential prospects. So whether that's education or building out through the network, I think that's where you start. So, all right, let's get into our next one. Timely price increase. Oh yeah, cost of living and AI. This person is going a little rant here about cost of living and seeing those prices increasing both on the vendor side, and I know in the comments here they were talking about the increase of COGS just in general, and there were some people posting about their MSPs in here as well about disbelief of how the price increases were happening. But I'm curious how you guys have approached price increases historically versus, like, I know we have one vendor that has hit us with 5 different price increases over the last year. How do you pass that on straight away, or do you do that on a scheduled basis? And what do you do when it supersedes your agreement?
That's a lot of questions there. Where do you want to start?
All right. Well, let's start with what do you do as far as like so that vendor that hit us with 5 different price increases in a year. That's more than what we had projected we were going to see when we were doing our client pricing. So how would you handle that? Would you go to your client and adjust, or is that already baked into your agreements to be able to adjust like that?
I mean, I'd look at my vendor agreement first. If it's not in my vendor agreement that they can do that, I'd tell them that's nice for them, that they'd like that. But no, because it's not in my agreement. I'm not doing it. And if they don't like it, I'll go find somebody else. Like it's just not appropriate. Like if you've agreed to something, agree to it. Like I get it. You have higher costs, but I shouldn't have to eat it. My client shouldn't have to eat it. And we already had an agreement. Do what you say you do when you say you do it.
How do you handle those price increases as they traditionally come to you?
So the Microsoft ones, right? Those are the ones that we cannot control. Like we had a Microsoft one not too awful long ago. It happened after a lot of my clients' budgeting season happens. Then I do have to go back to them and say, look, you can go right on their site. You can see that they've raised the prices. I can't stop this. This is completely out of my control. And they understand those. But the ones that are just like randomly, we're just going to charge you more, or we're going to put a tariff fee on this, even though the tariffs aren't actually happening yet. Like, I'm not okay with that. I'm just not paying it. Just not doing it.
Matt, how did you guys handle price increases?
So I think in general, we took the same approach Don did, and I feel like that's my broken record for everything in this show. We though, answering I think what was one of your other questions, baked in an annual price increase to agreements, and that would cover like the typical annual price increases we got from vendors as our agreements with them renewed. Kind of the same thing as Don on the agreements or price increases mid-contract that the vendors are trying and put in. If it was not in the paperwork, we just wouldn't do it. And some of that came with scale, right? As we got big enough, we really had a lot of negotiating leverage on things like that. When we were smaller, it wasn't as easy to do, although I guess the benefit there was it was easier to switch tools at the time. But kind of the same deal. If it wasn't in the contract, then we just wouldn't be okay with that. And the traditional price increases, the normal ones, were covered by our annual price increase to clients. Yeah,
that's largely been how we've done it. Is we've got that annual increase that's baked into our agreements, so that we have the ability to increase up to a certain percentage without having to trigger a more in-depth conversation. So basically, if it's less than, I think, 5%, 4% is an automatic increase that we're allowed to do. But there are times when you have to go and have those conversations with clients of like, to your point, like Microsoft decides that they're going to push an increase, change licensing structure, or some of the requirements around it. Those things happen. So, yeah, the thing that is infuriating to me over recent time here has been about the tariffs fees that people are talking about, or the inflation increases that don't necessarily add up to the increases that you're seeing necessarily come through, passed down by some of the vendors. So we've certainly been shopping some vendors when we notice that there's some inconsistencies with how they are handling their increases, because it definitely does seem like there's some greed driving or being obfuscated by some of the headlines out there in the media. So, all right. Anything else to touch on there with your price increases?
They're
Not
just
really.
always going to be a thing, right? Just to accept that and plan for it. Like the worst thing you could do is make your client agreements hoping that your vendors' prices don't go up. They're going to.
Yeah.
One of the things I did hear recently that was really good was to put in some of the third party service provider information into your contracts that, you know, basically talk to your legal team, talk to your lawyers, because I am not a lawyer. I'm just playing one on this episode. It basically says we're not responsible for some of the things that third party service providers do. And one of those things is price increases. So I would put that type of language into a contract just so it's clear that there are going to be times that you can't be responsible for things that other people do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the comments that was on this particular thread had to do with the fact that of a MSP that was unwilling to justify why they were making increases, just kind of a generic. And I've seen that with some clients that have had that with other MSPs where it was just, well, we're doing an increase regardless, and there was no, explanation that went along with it. The other thing that was discussed within that thread was forcing clients into potentially objectively services they don't need, such as AI, and having that baked in. I think we're kind of the mind that unless it leads to something that is core to their security and livelihood of the business, then it's an optional type of discussion that we would have. But I don't know if you guys have any views on those additional services that might get added in over time.
I feel like those should all be line items, right? You have, if you decide you're adding it to your stack, for the most part, that comes at renewal time, depending on what it is. Of course, there's a big discussion on like when you add that in. If it's so important, you do it for everybody all at once. But something like AI, I can't imagine that being part of a core agreement. I guess I could see the argument that 365 has become part of a core agreement, and a lot of MSPs do that as part of their line items. We always did that separately, even though basically everyone had it. We just wanted to separate the core, managing the device and network services from things that they were using for their own productivity. So we separated it, which does, I guess, bring in an interesting argument if you're an Intune shop, but we'll put that to the side. I think I don't like the idea of adding something like AI or Copilot or anything like that as part of a you can't not have this portion. It just doesn't give me a good feeling.
Me either. So I want to take a step back because I think, Matt, we do things very similar to the way that you guys did them. We break everything out. We're very transparent in the way that we do it just because of that exact thing. But one of the things that we have found, like if we found something that we felt that every client should 100% have, and even though it wasn't in their budget for that year, they couldn't cover it, we ate that. That was something we did as a business and called it a business expense. And then next year it went into our 2020 whatever third element security package, right? Because we white label, we don't tell people what it is. That way we can move things in and out as are needed, but that way we have things covered. So we had some of that going on. But if people want to put AI in, I mean, there's a lot of security that has to be put in first, especially, I mean, even just Copilot. Like if you're not doing the security piece to that, if you don't have purview, if you don't have all the pieces turned on that need to be turned on before Copilot gets introduced. I mean, I literally had a conversation with somebody the other day that didn't have their tenant set up, not our client yet, for Copilot, but had 2 licenses in there for Copilot. And I was explaining how it actually worked and what it read and what it didn't read. And they were like, ooh, we should turn that off because they didn't understand how it functioned. So I would be very much against just adding Copilot in randomly without doing the work ahead of time and having the client understand the work ahead of time.
All right. I'm going to move us along here to our next topic. I don't know that we'll get to everything here, but let's get into why everyone hates MSPs, and do they? Because gentleman's been around the industry for a bit. We all know the struggle. We all know it sucks. What's great about working at an MSP? Even if it's bad for a reason, there's something you enjoy about it, even if just every now and then. So even though people may bash on MSPs, what's something you guys love and enjoy about MSPs? Matt, you first.
There is no faster way to get your hands on all sorts of different technologies in a very short time than doing MSP work. You'll get good at troubleshooting. You'll get good at thinking on the fly. You'll get exposed to all sorts of things, and you'll get some experience doing client expectation setting and just general like customer service relationship things, because you're coming into hard situations constantly. So just the extreme breadth of technologies that you'll get your hands on is one of the really good things.
I think this is one of those situations where if IT and the world that we live in is your vocation, the MSP is for you. If this is not your vocation and it is just a job or it is just a vehicle for cash, go somewhere else and work. You have to love this. You have to love the community. This has to be the vocation that you want to be in order to love the MSP world.
Yeah, I to Josh's comment there, and community is amazing. For me, it's the ability to have a glimpse into a whole slew of other businesses that I can understand. Like, we deal with everything from clients that are law firms to environmental service companies and manufacturing and so forth. So I get a whole lot of experience in a whole lot of different areas over the years that I otherwise wouldn't get to. And to me, that's a unique and interesting challenge that I really enjoy.
That's such a good point. I can't tell you how often I'll need something and say, oh, I had a client that did this. Now I know who to use for whatever service I'm looking for. A minor but genuinely useful life benefit. I feel like anything I need, I'm like, oh, I know a good plumber. I know, they were a client.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to move us along here so we can make up a little time to our next story about coaching younger employees on a career path. So a lot of MSPs like to hire younger folks getting started in their career. Some have already spent some time and money on training. Most have at least dabbled in some college education. In the past, this individual told them to go for their A+, the MS 900 or Azure 900, and as long as the company supports it. What else, or what are you doing to help advance people along in their career, and what career coaching would you give them?
So I think we're a little different in this respect. So when we onboard folks, they have their first 90 days. We onboard them. We do a 90-day onboarding. If they manage to get through it a little bit faster because they worked at an MSP before, great, fantastic. Again, we've talked about business operating systems previously. So we will sit down with them and figure out what they're going to do over the next 90 days, right? What does that look like? Is there a cert they're interested in? Is there something very specific they want to take a look at? Is it just that they need to get better at things overall, right? And if that's the case, let's make sure that they have the resources to get it. But I think at the end of the day, if you're helping them plan out a career path that not only is good for them, things that they are interested in, but also good for the company, everyone wins here. And there should be milestones or rocks or whatever you want to call them along the way for both the company as well as the individual.
Matt?
The big thing I try to do with new hires, and just based on where I was in the organization, I usually was working with more experienced people. But when I worked with someone who was relatively new, the big thing I would try and help them figure out, I would ask them, but usually the answer was they didn't know without some thought, was trying to help them figure out what they really wanted to do in the tech industry. Did they want to go down the security path? Did they want to go down the management path? And we'd have a conversation about that being a different thing than technical. Did they want to become specialized in something? Or did they want to become a generalist and just a very experienced sysadmin? And tried to spend a lot of time just helping them get a feel and try by asking questions what they wanted to do, and then tried to help them get there. And sometimes that was certification. Sometimes that was inviting them to help me on some bigger project or come on site or give them some things to try in a lab, right? Just, and I always have one or two people who I would kind of take under my wing and say, you're going to come hang out with me for a while and we're going to do stuff together, and you can try taking a swing at this thing that is otherwise outside of your job description. Probably not the best organizational thing because I'm messing up processes by doing that. But the people I did that for were really appreciative of, and some of them I was proud to see leave the organization because what they really wanted to do opened up. So I don't know if that's good advice or not. Probably good advice from a human perspective, maybe not necessarily good for the continuation of keeping good people around, but I felt like it was the right thing.
Mentorship is always a good thing. Like, you don't go wrong with mentorship. I mean, if you're not assigning a mentor for your new people, you're doing everybody a disservice, because not only does your mentor get the benefit of teaching somebody, you learn something so much better if you have to teach it to somebody else, but the mentee gets that ability to learn from somebody else, and they have a built-in buddy essentially from day one starting a new job, which is fantastic. You can't go wrong doing that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I know for those that don't necessarily have someone internally to be a mentor, GTIA has a mentorship program that you can sign up for that's free for anyone in the space. And they do an annual program that will get you matched up with someone. But I know I value experience over certification and education. Which I think most people in the industry probably would attest to. But Dawn, I think you and I also kind of approach continuing ed the same way as well, where we're dedicating time for our employees to focus in on each week, where we're effectively requiring them to work towards some continuing education, whether that is a certification, or that's just following a passion that is supporting something that they care about in the business. One of the things I'm going to share here in chat is a good resource for anyone that's going down the security road. Paul Jeremy put together this pretty infamous roadmap of security certifications, which is impressive and a little daunting at the same time, but based on the things that are of interest to you, if you are interested in cybersecurity, this will give you a good roadmap on what certifications or continuing education to pursue.
And don't forget, folks, we have more than just technical people working at our organization. So your CFOs, your controllers, your HR folks, anybody that isn't a tech still needs continuing education. So do not forget about them too.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's get into our last story here about constant imposter syndrome. I've been working as a SOC engineer for almost 4 years now, and whenever I work with the CTI guys, running guys, it's always something new. It's exciting and stressful at the same time. I learn and enjoy it, but always feel that I'm running behind. I feel like I always need to do more. Few of my teammates won a CTF event, and I feel like Why can't I do it? It's a never-ending race, and I started to feel like an outsider. This may not be the right sub for a rant like this. I'll take it down, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so this gentleman's working, or lady's working in a SOC in cybersecurity, and day to day is getting that imposter syndrome. Who wants to tackle this?
So let's talk about the secret to imposter syndrome, right? We're all faking it, all of us, every day, all day. And it's not something that you're right. So Josh is like, wait, something goes away with imposters? It does not. It never goes away, no matter how good you get. It never goes away. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So the way to get around it is just go do the thing that you think everybody else knows so much more about than you, because they don't. They're faking it. Or at least they may know, but it's not like they know so much more than you. They're not like the biggest resource on the planet, blah, 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 blah. They're putting their pants on the same way that you are. Just go do you, essentially, is what it boils down to.
Yeah, it doesn't go away. I think the thing that helped me was to recognize the difference between experience and just raw capabilities. There are lots of people who have done things longer than me, who are better at it because they've been doing it longer. That doesn't mean I couldn't if I started at the same time, or could get to their level if I started doing it and working on it. I think the other thing is to have some confidence in your own skill set. And the best way to do that is to look at yourself a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, however long you've been in the industry, and say, look at what I'm able to do now compared to what I was doing then. And you'll see that you really are, you've come a long way, even if you don't realize it, and give yourself some credit for that. But like Don said, the imposter syndrome never completely goes away. There's always this feeling of, man, I should be better at this, or I should be the best at all this, or what have you. And just give yourself some credit for what you have accomplished.
And not only that, but go ahead.
Just gonna say, yeah, it really never goes away. I've had the chance to be on some pretty big stages and work with people I've looked up to throughout my career, and I've never felt comfortable doing any of it. And I think that there's something to be said that for the idea that you should always be uncomfortable. I think if you become comfortable, there's an issue. There's a problem.
That was what I was going to get to. So fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Well, imposter syndrome solved. Let's go ahead.
Over and done with.
Let's go ahead and close things out here, and let's talk about what things we have coming up. All right. So next week, I'm going to be at the MSP show in London with several brilliant people. Dawn, you're going to be in Chicago. You mind touching base real quick on what that is?
Yeah, so ShowWeb has an amazing VIP event for their partners. There's a couple different ones they're running. There was one in Phoenix earlier in the year, and this one's in Chicago. And I think there are 2 more through the rest of the year. So if you're a ShowWeb partner, be sure to reach out to your rep, or they probably will reach out to you and get you involved in one of those VIP events.
Awesome. Matt, I think that second one might fall under your purview.
Yeah, so IT Nation Secure is coming up. That is beginning of June. We have through the end of today a 50% off flash sale going on. Lots of new stuff, new format on content, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing everyone there.
Awesome. We'll see if we can get some more information about that flash sale put into comments. But after IT Nation, which of course I think all 3 of us might actually be at, I will be heading off to London Tech Week, which will be going on at the same time as PAX 8 Beyond. And then I will be seeing some more friendly faces in Manchester for GTIA's UKNI community meeting, and they're taking the Spotlight Awards over there as well this year. Cool to see some of the nominations popping up with some of our friends over there. And then, as always, going to give the monthly plug for IR games. If you guys have not taken part in that, please hop on and do so, because that is eye-opening and humbling and great experience. I know that Josh will always be sure to call out. So. Well, thank you guys very much, as always, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.
Same.
You too. Thank you.
See y'all next week.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.